Okay. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the last session in Innovation Week. It's been a very exciting week for us all. We've all tuned in some shape or form throughout the course of some very exciting insights throughout the course of the week. My name is Camille Danigan. I work with the Department of Defence. I work in our Galway office, and today we are going to look at a number of projects. We're going to get the project managers to give us some insights into their exciting projects. As I said, we've had a very extensive menu of activity throughout the week, throughout this Innovation Week. And in keeping with the word menu, we're now at the dessert stage of the week. So we're going to hear some sweet stuff today and more excitement associated with the projects. So I'd like to thank our hosts, EY. So EY have been working with the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform, in particular involved in their strategy, the Making Innovation Happen. So we're going to move on and listen to our first speaker. So the first speaker this morning is going to be Camille. So Camille is from Adaptive Training, and she has worked on a project with the HSE relating to CAMS. So I'm going to pass you over now to Camille. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, speak to you and to you. My name is Camille Danigan. I'm an independent virtual reality producer, but I work with regular partners, and in this particular context I'm talking about the CAMS project. So these was a series of virtual reality embodied scenarios that we've created for CAMS. So CAMS is the Children and Adolescent Mental Health Services, part of the HSE. And if you just go to the next slide. So just a little bit about context for me. So I worked in tech. I wanted to be an actor. My dad said, no, go get a proper job and then we'll talk. So I did a computer science degree because I liked computer games, and it was the best thing I ever did. I was working in AIB Bank as a programmer, and then Rabobank for over 13 years. And parallel to that, I had a successful career in the arts as a theatre maker and actor. 6 years ago, in 2015, I went into the Science Gallery, and there was a conference there called Digital Biscuit, and I tried this embodied scenario called Doghouse, and I was in the perspective of the father in the scene. And through non-verbal communication, I experienced a lot of visceral responses in my body and a lot of empathy. I knew this was something really interesting. So I left my job in tech and was broke for a couple of years, and then it arrived. Yay. So yeah, that's my background. Next slide, please. So the Dal Project. So I was speaking at a HSC talk just before lockdown in the Digital Hub, and I was talking about some work that I had done on a voluntary basis with NISA at St. James's Hospital, where we had created an embodied film which put patients into the perspective of Mary. And Mary had been in NISA and St. James's for a prolonged stay after a fall, and she was really nervous about leaving the hospital. And this was a common use case, so we brought it to life through the perspective of Mary. And really important in this concept is that you hear the character's self-talk. So you hear everything that she's thinking and how that improves or kind of degrades over time. When Niamh heard me talk about that project, she had a eureka moment and said, this is the concept that we need to help teenagers at the service with anxiety. So just a bit about the problem we were addressing. Anxiety is a massive issue. 25% of users that come to CAMS are suffering with anxiety. 5% of them can't even get to school. And so that was one of the scenarios that we brought to life, that Dana is in their bedroom and has a tummy pain on a Monday morning and can't get to school. And then it's rising. That's the pre-COVID statistic of 50% of teenagers, which is bigger now, I'm sure. So this the use case is even stronger than before. So I'm going to talk you through this. So I met Niamh, told you about that. We together applied for the Public Service Innovation Fund, and so we had a multitude of meetings for about 6 months leading up to that, and then we put in for the fund, and we were delighted that we were successful with that. COVID had hit during this time, and we were all working remotely, so it was challenging to adapt in a way because I'm a very hands-on producer and project manager, and I really wanted to be on the ground with the service users in CAMS in Galway and Roscommon. And Niamh was running a series of design thinking and storyboarding and scripting workshops with all the teenagers there. And I would have loved to have been there, but I couldn't. So Niamh was, you know, eyes and ears, I guess, on the ground and facilitating all of that really hands-on process with the teenagers. And that was so, so key. So this is a highly collaborative project. We co-created every single aspect of it with the teenagers at CAMS, which I believe is key to its success, because it resonates to the teenagers because they co-created it. So that goes to so the character creation. We had a series of aesthetics that we could have gone with, from quite cartoonish to photorealistic, and so we brought the teenagers through some design options, and they chose actually a quite playful cartoonish environment, which is what we went with. Then the environments, we also got design approval, if you like, from the teenagers. We showed them a series of possibilities, and again, they chose this somewhat cartoonish kind of bedroom. So partnered on this project were Retinize. They are a virtual reality studio based in Belfast, and they have a really interesting platform that I've used on multiple projects called Animotive. This was actually the very first commercial funded project that used that platform. And how it works is, once you've created your avatars and your environments, actors, or in this case me, ex-actor, jumped into the perspective of Dala, so into Dala's avatar body, and carried out all of the gestures. And because we're first person, it's actually quite useful because we don't have to do facial recognition. Dala doesn't see their own face. So that was working with Retinize. And then I also worked with some external freelancers. So I work a lot with freelancers, Tim O'Donovan on sound and Shane Sutton on 2D animation. We knew we had limited budget. We knew we couldn't create an endless scenario in 3D. When Niamh showed me the first draft of the script, I nearly died, because it was like, Dala arrives at school, Dala goes to the locker, Dala gets books out, Dala, you know, is getting looks from the other side. So it's like, well, there's your budget gone with that sequence. You know, we haven't even got to the classroom. So what we did was we got very inventive, and I think this is a key learning in terms of project management, is setting expectations, especially with emerging technology, because yes, anything's possible, but of course it comes down to budget. So what was the most that CAMS could get out of this budget, and how many scenarios could we bring to life? So originally we wanted to do 5, we ended up making 2, and actually we probably ran out of budget like 1.5 way through the scenario creation, but everybody was so on board that we absolutely saw it through to its fruition. So I've talked about working with the teenagers, this iterative design process. So before we would go and build anything, we would work with the teenagers and get their input and their feedback. So that was all a paper-based stage. So we didn't build anything that wasn't kind of approved and in that feedback loop with the teenagers. So then we went on to have scripting sessions. The amount of analogies and metaphors that the teenagers came up with, even in terms of there's 3 videos, we were going to do, you know, a positive, an optimal outcome and a non-optimal outcome, and they came up with a 3rd one. Well, what if you've embodied the learning so much you don't even need this coach character, which works with them. Another important kind of project management in terms of emerging technologies. So we got very creative with the format. So yes, it was virtual reality built in Unity and working with this Animotive platform that I've mentioned, but we combined a lot of 2D assets, and that really gave us a lot of bang for our buck. So for instance, in the 2nd video, so the first video, Dal is absolutely kind of freaking out. You hear the heartbeat, you hear all the negative self-talk. Because of these budget constraints, instead of having Dala all over the school, we have them in a toilet, which actually is really true to life, because these students and these teenagers often hide in a toilet cubicle and miss classes and all sorts. So we have Dala in the toilet cubicle, and when they get really anxious, the walls actually close in. So this is a really nice effect in virtual reality, because you're kind of really giving that claustrophobic experience, and it's very visceral. And then when Dala gets super anxious, alarms go off. Now they're metaphorical alarms, but they're real alarms in VR, because that's how the students feel. They feel like a fire alarm's going off. The teenagers with anxiety, they feel like everything is closing in and they feel like it's red. So because we're working with this super powerful visceral medium of virtual reality, we can really bring these sensory activities to life. And the most important aspect really when working with emerging technologies, I would say, is to iterate. So to create minimum viable product, prototype, whatever you want to call it, create something really small and iterate. So we created like the first minute of a like 15-minute scene, and we got luckily CAMS had invested in some headsets, so we were able to send that 1-minute scene to CAMS. They put it on the headset, they tested it with loads of teenagers. We got a ton of feedback: what worked, what didn't work, what they liked, what they didn't like, what they wanted to see more of, etc. And we incorporated all of that feedback into our next sprint. Then, as I mentioned, we built a second scenario, which was the bedroom scenario. Please. So this is basically summarizing that we had a 3-stage process, and these statistics are actually from CAMS themselves. So they had 17 teenagers kind of on board that were actively part of this co-creation process, and there was regular, sometimes even twice a week, but Wednesday evenings was usually when CAMS would meet with the teenagers, carry out design thinking workshops, scripting workshops, storyboarding workshops. Neve got really creative. She's a very creative woman herself, and she was able to take all of those learnings and input from the teenagers and script. So Neve Moran from CAMS, a senior occupational therapist in CAMS, wrote the script, and she's a really good script writer. Like, I work with scripts for a very long time, and she really captured it. Now, we had to edit her 30-page script down to 15 pages, but we got there. So this is actually, we'll just flick through the next 2 slides. So design, build, and test are the 3 pillars of our methodology for this project. And just want to show you, so we'll just watch a couple of seconds, Rachel, of the animatic. And so this is really just for people who might not be used to shoulders and belly. Yeah, animation process, that's my voice. So in animation, a really useful tool. So you have your storyboard, which is a series of sketches. And sometimes in 360 you could do that as a bird's eye view. In this case, most of what you're seeing is about in a 220-degree field of view. So we carried out a storyboard with Retinize that was a series of 16:9, basically normal 2D storyboards. And then the key part in these scenarios is the voiceover. So it helped that I used to be an actor. So anyway, I did all the guide voiceovers, so that gives us the timing for the animation. So this animatic is really crucial because it gives the animators the timings for the animation sequences. And when I was doing essentially motion capture in the avatar, in the platform, we knew exactly how long everything needed to be. And so we worked to that. So that's just to show you what an animatic looks like. So it's literally a sketch that's got a timeline and a voiceover to it. And then this is
Stop for ages the last time. How am I going to stop them?
Piece.
It might be that stress thing with my legs and breathing and everything. Might as well try closing the app. At least I'll get Mum off my back. She keeps asking me about it. Pathfinder will need supernatural powers to get me out of here. Let's give it a go.
Well, finally. Hey, Dala, I'm Moxie from Pathfinder. I'll be your guide. Look, I can see that you're feeling pretty crap, and yeah, you're right. It's that stress thing. Your brain and body truly believe there's something terrifying lurking outside that door, just waiting to get you. Now, teenagers can be scary, but fighting, running away, or staying here aren't really options, are they? I found the easiest way to turn down the stress stuff is with our breathing.
Yeah, but I'm definitely frozen to this toilet, so it's worth a try.
Okay, great. Let's give it a go. We'll do it together. So get as comfortable as you can. I should have brought my yoga mat. Put one hand on your chest and one on your tummy. When you breathe in, feel your tummy expand, like blowing up a balloon. And when you breathe out, just notice it deflate. So let's try it. Breathe in through your nose for a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then hold for a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then out through your nose for a count of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Just scroll down. Oh, just go back a tiny bit, Rachel, and just look directly below you. So when you're in viewer, you
breathe in,
feel like you're in this cartoon character's body. So I started talking about the 2D assets. So we would never have had enough budget to produce like a 15-minute piece with in full 3D. So characters, additional characters, were actually 2D characters. So this is using a tool called Character Creator in Adobe, which I'm a massive fan of. So Shane Sutton built the Moxie gamer character, again, based on the kind of coach that these teenagers would resonate with. So they were like, what if it's a gamer chick? So she's a gamer chick, and actually it's Dr. Celine Mullins is the voice of Moxie, and she really, her voice just naturally calms you, I think. So that's it on the video. Thanks, Rachel. So just the slide. Yeah, so as I've mentioned, we had 3 versions of the video. Dal is super anxious and it doesn't end well. And then the second version, Moxie appears and talks them through a series of breathing exercises, as well as turning around their negative self-talk. And that's why I believe this concept of hearing the self-talk is incredibly powerful, and not just for kids or for teenagers, but it's working really effectively in St. James's Hospital for older demographics as well. And actually, you know, we all have self-talk, and the more awareness that we can bring to the self-talk, the better, and look to turn it around. And there's a lot of meditation is the best way, but like breathing techniques are incredibly powerful to turn around our negative self-talk and create space between our thoughts and our reactions. And this third video is good to go, so they don't even need the app. And all the analogy of the app, so the teenager has an anxious app that all came from the teenagers. They're like, it's like an app is running, and it's like the battery's running out when you have this anxiety. So we created this app, anxious app, and it's the battery keeps buzzing throughout the videos, and it's super annoying by design. And then they close anxious app, they open Pathfinder, and that's when the coach character appears. So just a few takeaways. Oh no, sorry, findings. So I can send these stats on to anyone who's interested, but in summary, it was really effective. It's been used actively on a daily basis in camps in Galway and Roscommon. We've just been nominated for a collaboration award in the Health Tech Innovation Awards, fingers crossed, on 25th of November, which would just really highlight what we've done, and that hopefully unlock funding for us to continue and roll it out. The ultimate aim of this is for it to be rolled out in schools, so for earlier intervention for teenagers that might be already suffering with anxiety but haven't reached the CAM service yet. And I'm sure most of you know the CAM service is completely overloaded. You know, if we could triple it, it would be amazing. But early intervention would actually stop or mitigate some of the cases that end up in camps. There's some nice anecdotal responses from teenagers there. And some takeaways. I trained as a Scrum Master when I was in IT, and it was really interesting because I was like, this is how we work in theatre. So I'm lucky. I think my background in both the arts and in tech as a Scrum Master really enabled me to bring that collaborative spirit to projects. You know, I'm all about open communication, and Dr. Celine Mullins, who was the director on this and advisor on the project, I talked to her this morning, and I said, like, how come this project worked so well? Because it's very hard when you're in it to actually reflect from the outside. And she said, a lot of it came down to the trust that you created with the various partners and the parties. So she had a couple of terms of the types of trust. So apparently I enabled vulnerability, so people felt they could be vulnerable, and that was okay. And yeah, just building trust with those various parties, and also protecting the dev team. So Rhett and I, we have a great relationship, and they don't need to know all the worries, concerns necessary. They didn't need to see the 30-page script and completely freak out. So being that conduit between the world builders or the developers and the client is something that I think I do naturally quite well, and create a need to know information basis within that. And as I mentioned, the feedback loop is just so key with these kinds of projects. Say two.
All right, good morning all. Thank you very much for being here, part of this event. Yes, right. Yeah, that's can see my face now. Good morning all, and thank you very much for the audience here and those that are here face to face, and also for the online audience. And thanks also for Chris for the opportunity to invite me for this Innovation Week, and also for you, Rachel, for the opportunity here in Ernst Young. So my name is Rafael Bernardes. I work for Dublin Bus. I'm Quality and Continuous Improvement Manager and also Innovation. So I have been in Dublin Bus for the last 6 years. And my background is quality, environmental, health and safety, energy and sustainability. So I work with different projects and also with different, I would say, departments and cross-functional projects and also initiative. So now I'm looking after for innovation projects, continuous improvement, and also piece of innovation technology. So today I'm going to present a technology, a 3D VR and Oculus headsets that Dublin was implementing in place for training purpose. So actually it is a 3D technology that we brought in house to reduce the number of accidents, incidents, and collisions involving cyclists. And Dublin Bus is one of the largest public service transport in Ireland and also in Dublin City. So we have to look after our stakeholders, and the cyclists, they're one of our main, I would say, external stakeholders. Just a little big picture of Dublin Bus. As I mentioned before, we are the largest public service and operating transport in Ireland and also in Dublin Bus. In 2020, our fleet was close to 1,000 buses. And also in terms of number of passengers, from last year was close to 70 million. As you can see, we suffered some disruption from 2019, 2020 due to the pandemic and situation. In terms of employees, we have close to 3,600 employees, and we have a very diversity community. So basically 70 different nationalities, and 21% they are not from Ireland, including myself, not Irish. And in terms of kilometers traveled, last year was 54 millions, and 2019 55 millions. As you can see from last year and this year, like 2020, we did not suffer much as we are working as a front works for the pandemic. And also in terms of technology, Dublin Bus is implementing as a part of the environmental friendly culture and hydrogen buses as a part of sustainability initiative and our sustainability project. And also we have at this moment 74 hybrid buses, and which were purchased together with the National Transport Authority. So that's a big picture of how Dublin Bus is innovating in terms of technology and sustainability. So the case today that I will bring, it's a VR technology that was a project in partnership with VR AI. So now it's here to represent the company, and was a very good project because involved HR in terms of training and also health and safety in terms of accidents and incidents involving cyclists. So training, Dublin Bus has a training center school, and we have 2,700 bus drivers. So we have initial training and also ongoing training along the year. So as a public service transport provider, and Dublin Bus has to meet some legal requirements in terms of trainings and for the Road Safety Authority, Health and Safety Authority. And also we have to comply with some few specific pieces of legislation, like the CPC training, for example, which is Certificate Professional Competence, is a legal requirement. So we have that in house. And to foster and to have a better, I would say, training experience for our bus drivers, we have, I would say, standalone initiatives. So they are basically induction training programs, which include for route specific training. And also we have a mentoring and monitoring programs for those new bus drivers that we started to work in the company. The duration of those monitoring programs, they are 4, 8, and 11 months with a final review after that program. And also we provide some training in terms of those new vehicles, and include the hybrid buses that I have presented and mentioned before. And also we brought the 3D technology. So we are going above and beyond like the legal requirements. We are going above and beyond the good practice. So the 3D and virtual reality, and it's a very good initiative because it brings some reality to the bus drivers. So the bus drivers now they can see, they can have some perceptions how a cyclist it's cycling along the streets here. So they have the awareness and also they have the attention and to drive the bus while they know the stakeholders. So I just a quick view here about like the program, about like the challenge and also the reasons why we brought this technology. So the first challenge was Dublin Bus, so the rise of injuries and deaths in the cyclist community in terms of accidents, collisions, incidents involve cyclists. So and also Dublin Bus, so like how to educate the Dublin Bus drivers on the importance of the challenge faced the cyclists. As I mentioned before, the cyclists are external stakeholders. And also how Dublin Bus as the main public service and transport provider in Ireland and Dublin, how to make like cycling in Dublin a safe experience. So in partnership with VRAI, so we designed a solution using like project management and initiative and also project management, I would say, and tools to design that, like to bring that technology to Dublin Bus and also to foster and to better improve that experience for our bus drivers. So, and we have here an example, which is the 3D VR headset. So that's a 3D and virtual reality Oculus. It's very like helpful for bus drivers to understand how is the point of view like via being a cyclist. And Rachel, would you mind to present and to show the yeah. Thank you. Yeah, you can explore the 360 degrees. Yeah. So as you can see, the technology, the 3D VR technology, like provides the bus drivers, I would say, a real experience in your current scenario, like a normal day in Dublin. And so we might expand this type of environment to other environments as well. Maybe like a raining day or a snowing day, or a day with like a pride, or a day with a strike. So we can simulate different, I would say, virtual realities via using this technology. If you scroll down, you might see that's the cyclist, okay? And also left and right, you can see like how close it is, the cyclist among the buses. And also like we have like other stakeholders as well, which they are the passengers and not the passengers, are the pedestrians. Sometimes e-scooters and motorists. So that's a very good, let's say, example and how our bus drivers, they can have that perception from a cyclist's point of view, in a normal day, in a normal condition. Yeah. In terms of findings, in terms of outcomes and performance, and as I mentioned before, like Dublin Bus, we have like many different like external stakeholders, which include like passengers and cyclists, pedestrians, motorists, and sometimes even like horse and carriage for tourists. So based on that scenario, like our accident trends since like 2017 have been like improved, not only because of the technology, not only because of the 3D and virtual reality, but also from the other legal requirements and the other initiatives that the HR training bus and Dublin Bus Centers and Training Center has in place. So as you can see here, the trends they are reducing. Actually, the passengers accident per 1 million passengers, which it is a rate, has been reduced from 6.3 to 5, which it is a very good like improvement. In terms of accident rates and for collision per 1 million kilometers was reduced from 19.5 to 18.5. So Dublin Bus is committed to look after the local community that we operate, and also we put our customers and also the local community first as a part of operations, not only our passengers but also the other external stakeholders, including like the local communities, local authorities. As I mentioned before, passengers, cyclists, pedestrians, motorists, and those people that use e-scooters, and they are on the core of your operations. And also we put like safety first and above everything. Thank you.
Just give me 2 seconds. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We're still in the morning just by 1 minute. My name is Conor Ryan, and I'm head of technology delivery here in EY. My role at EY is to help clients, both public and private sector, deliver on their change agendas. And prior to my role here, I was head of enterprise change for a large retail bank, and I managed about 350 million worth of change per annum. I had 300 people, project professionals working for me. So I'm here today to talk to you guys about how we deliver on an organization's change agenda using both traditional technology as well as emerging tech. So before we get into the detail, it's probably worth just stepping back and looking at some examples of where emerging technology is having an impact within the public sector. We saw 2 excellent examples earlier there that really resonated with me as a cyclist in Dublin City, and also with a son who suffers from anxiety, so it really did resonate. But we in EY would look at it across 3 different lenses. So the first one is improving citizen experiences. It could be anything from service improvement, personalization of services, or general service improvement. Risk compliance and control is a big bucket of initiatives within that, some of which would be pollution control, fraud detection, and cyber. And then the third sort of lens we would look at would be optimizing efficiency. So that's maintenance, scheduling, applicant tracking, and remote health monitoring. So really, that's just, a few examples that are just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the services where emerging technology can disrupt and deliver against. But then we go to the right-hand side, and this is the part I want to talk to you about. We get key questions from change leaders, and they have in place already existing governance structures across risk, finance, HR, and sourcing. And they're asking us, well, how do we bring these initiatives using emerging technology into existing traditional change environments? So the key questions they're asking are, how do we activate those governance plans for emerging tech? How do we leverage the data and agility to drive innovation? Are we driving innovation through ecosystems and partnerships? We saw the Dublin bus example earlier, and on the call yesterday before we had this session, we talked about leveraging other bus networks in Europe. The next one is, how do we nurture talent with these new initiatives and strategies? And then, does the change focus on the customer? And absolutely, we saw that in those 2 examples there. It's not just technology for technology's sake. There is an end user, or a customer, or a stakeholder in mind. So if we go on to the next slide, when we look at sort of key transformation challenges across the organization, I'm not going to go through all of this, there's 6 different sort of focus areas here. The key challenges that clients come to us with are, inconsistent prioritization of their portfolio. They don't have the right flexibility in terms of experienced resources or the appropriate delivery methods. Pace and value, it's very difficult for them to mobilize key digital initiatives and implement emerging technology alongside the sort of traditional, more rigid change governance structures. Benefit realization, how can you define and deliver benefits consistently? Bigger organizations will have audit on their back, and it's making sure your programs are audit ready, be them, even if they're small programs with using emerging tech, all the way up to your larger regulatory programs. And finally, the data MI and tooling. So if we go to the next slide, one of the ways we are solving these challenges with our clients is through the implementation of a TMO, a Transformation Management Office. So what is it, you're asking me? It's a strategic coordinating unit function, and it's about executing a portfolio of a change, which includes emerging technologies. Now, you're probably all sitting there at home and in the room here is asking me, what's the difference between a PMO and a TMO? And I'd sort of say just 4 key things. A PMO is generally permanent in nature, usually exists in large organizations. A TMO is generally time-bound over, be an 18-month to 2-year life cycle, and when the target end state is achieved, it gets retired. PMO is underpinned by project and program management methodology. So TMO is really about that portfolio management. Are we doing the right projects versus are we doing the projects right? PMO operational nature, TMO is very much strategic. And then finally, the PMO would be about realizing business value, whereas the TMO is about delivering strategic value and maximizing business value. And those sort of key differences. If I just go to the right-hand side of the wheel here, we'll stay on this for a little bit. The whole piece of a TMO is about bringing that sort of complementary expertise into the team, and that would be tech specialism, project and program management specialism, and then that transformation director with executive sponsorship all the way through. Around the sort of side of the wheel here, you've got 5 key disciplines that would underpin a transformation management office. Just go through them quickly. So top left, we go around clockwise. Business solutions. So that's looking at the change from the perspective of the standard people, process and technology piece. So what do we need to change to deliver on that outcome? Next piece is the transformation portfolio itself. So this is the portfolio of change that we need to deliver on from a planning perspective. And it's all the standard stuff: release schedules, roadmaps, cost, interdependency management. Third piece of the wheel down at the bottom right there is the business engagement and readiness. And this is really key. This is the implications on the change stakeholder community. Do we, it's all the standard change management. Do we understand the impacts? But one of the key focuses of this is ensuring that when the change capability is delivered, the business can actually accommodate that. That's a key one, which is often missed in large transformations. Then we go to transformation operations. That's the most PMO-like component of this, and that's really the day-to-day running of the transformation, governance, resourcing, financials, etc. And then finally, performance management. So that's the KPIs and measurements, and it's against transformation, but there's also operational KPIs. You can measure the change when it lands and when it goes in. So that's the sort of TMO, very whistle-stop component of the TMO. If we just go on to the next slide here, and I'm not going to go through all of this. I'm just going to focus on the right, the characteristics of a world-class TMO. So they actively shape the roadmap and transformation path. It's not they just take it and execute on it. That would be a PMO. This is actively shaping the ability to change that. Second point there, the ability to flex the focus over the life cycle of a program. Providing funding and a governance channel to implement emerging tech where applicable. Driving that decision making using MI, like identifying when and how to reorganize the program. So it's not like we're halfway through this, we have to see it to the end. If we need to cancel it, if we need to pivot, having the authority and the mandate to be able to change that. Taking that bird's eye aggregate view of the change and being able to roll up and down without being too bureaucratic. And then finally, making sure that the processes you overlay in the organization add value, and it's not just about reporting on status and progress. So if we go on to the next slide, this is really the sort of 6 steps. Now, we simplify it, as always, we're consultants, the 6 steps to mobilize a transformation office. And typically, a client will come in and ask us, they're about to kick off 2-year transformation. The ExCo would ask us to come in and we would map this out over a sort of 6 to 8 week period, depending on how mature the organization is. First one is, do you have the vision and purpose right? Do you understand what the outcomes you want to be delivered by the transformation? What are the indicators of success? You move across to the scope and mandate. So is it enterprise-wide? Is it specific? Is it going to be centralized, managed, or federated? These are really important things. As change professionals, we often get change thrown over the wall at us, and we run off and start implementing. But actually, having these conversations, and it's generally with the more senior people in the organization, to get it right up front, it means we can just get on with delivering once the project mobilizes. Issues and resolutions. That's really about looking at, actually, there's some good stuff in place we have today. Let's leverage it. or actually there's some pain points that need to be urgently addressed, and getting that cleared up before it kicks off. Setting up the operating model in terms of governance and what checkpoints are required, then the governance itself in terms of compliance, and then the key to this one is getting your accountability right and your resourcing right. So do you have the key roles laid out? Do we have suitable skills within the organization, or do we need to go outside for it? So there are the sort of 6 steps that you would take to mobilize the transformation office. So this is the final slide really, and I'll go through it here in terms of are you ready, but most organizations will not be able to answer yes to all of this, okay? And these are sort of prompter questions, and it depends on where they're at in their change journey. But the first one really is purpose. Do you have the right purpose and vision for digital that serves as a means to anchor your decisions? Constantly go back to it. If what's your North Star if you're deviating from it? Do you have the right culture set up within your organization? From a talent perspective, are you rewarding the right behaviors? From a governance and organization piece, are you going to allow the current governance to change, which it will have to change and flex when you're driving this transformation through? Technology is really, do you have the right technology in place to innovate? And really, you want to partner very closely with your CIO or CTO to get that across the line. The touch points, do you understand the customer journey or a customer or stakeholder journey throughout that piece? Do you understand your delivery processes and then the metrics piece on that? And for me, as I said before, not many people have the yes across all of this, but the right-hand side of the page is probably the more important stuff, and it's the stuff we'd work with the executive teams up front, because the other stuff we can build, and we can leverage best practice and accelerators, etc. But it's that side of the page is really where you need senior management to help support and drive out. So that's really it for me, folks. I've covered a lot over the past 15 minutes, and I hope I'll give you a sort of high-level understanding of how a TMO could help drive transformation in your organization. My email is there, so you can take a photo of it from print screen. Please do reach out if you'd like to know more. I'm more than happy to come in and talk to you guys directly, your teams, or your leadership on PMO and TMO implementation and maturity. Thank you very much.
I think you'll be okay there because I should be able to get the platform. So you
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we bring all of it. Open area.
Great.
So first off, I guess, thanks everyone for listening, and thanks for the presentations. I thought they were brilliant. The view of a cyclist, being a cyclist critic that I am very much the diesel brigade coming in from Kildare every day. But it was actually fascinating to see. Actually, what scared me was the height of the buses as I saw them going through. So really, really interesting to see that. My name is Gillian. I'm a director in technology consulting here in EY. Fortunate enough to work with Philip and the team to develop the innovation strategy last year for deeper than making it real strategy. And really what I want to do is just really talk with the panel about some of the questions that we would have in relation to the innovation strategy and kind of some of the key points and pillars that came out of that. So the first real big pillar in the innovation strategy was around citizen-centric innovation or developing user-centric innovation. It really came out, Camille, in your discussion in terms of how you got to understand the user needs, really anticipate them. I'm guessing, what kind of practical hints and tips could you give in terms of how you engage that? Because, I mean, your cohort as well was teenagers, probably an easier group in terms of talking to, speaking to, maybe not actually, as the case may be, depending on their shyness, etc. Really just good to understand that. And then maybe after that, then we might just discuss with Raphael and Niall just in relation to how you took and how you got the perception of cyclists built into your program of work